All right, welcome to this week's video. This one's going to be on the quicker end. I am on a little long weekend trip, so we're going to be focused here. Right here, big news. 8 minutes ago, Trump, the deal with IREN is now complete through social. Trump hereby fully authorized a toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously herewith authorized the immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. President Trump, deal with Islamic Republic of Iran finalized, authorizes opening Strait of Hormuz and immediate end to the U.S. naval blockade. Pretty big news there. Is that going to come into play this week? We'll talk about that. But first, let me show you where my eyes are going to be this week on the long side. All right, this is the focused long watch list. Mostly noticed ENTG, CORWV, NBIS, and then IREN. We're going to go over specifically those names, especially because CORWV has been inducted into the NASDAQ Top 100. I believe that's coming on the 16th of June, 16th or 18th, somewhere around there, but it's coming up. And so because it falls into that NeoCloud bucket, compute bucket for AI, we're kind of expecting some inflows of cash to come in, especially with NBIS and IREN also. They look great. And then ENTG, you're on the energy side. Let's get right into it. So looking at Microsoft, really here, it's beaten down. The hyperscalers, they just continue to hemorrhage cash, mostly for the AI build-out, right? They're not making a ton of money just yet. Amazon doesn't look super good. Meta, this looks honestly it looks like it might be heading to 520.26 again. We'll see. Obviously, we can get a bounce in here, maybe to retest this $600 level. We do have a pivot on gap here of 580.96 to 574.31. It's got to clear that first, but overall, it doesn't look that great. Google looks okay, but it's just in a downtrend now. Maybe it found short-term downtrend, that is. Long-term, it's obviously up. It's chopping around the 50. It's chopping around the anchor VWAP from that prior low. It's got some room to the downside. Maybe it holds at 340-ish level. Honestly, it's just not that interesting. Oracle might be interesting for you. I'd give it a few more days for earnings to digest. But this could set a higher low relative to this low. It already undercut and reclaimed there. We'll see if this area holds. Not that interesting. Apple is holding where it needs to. We'll see. It's right at the breakout area, so it's a retest on it. It's right at the 50 EMA. It has lost from high to low over the span of really, let's go here, of 2 days of 10% or so. It's down 8.28% here. It's interesting as a retest. Maybe you can risk against the 50 EMA at this area. I would really cut it tight though, because this could drop further, maybe even to 275. So I would just be mindful of that. Tesla, SpaceX obviously came out, so this might be getting some love from that. However, just in the grand scheme of things, it broke this downtrend line, retested it. It's making lower lows. Until we get a higher low or a higher high somewhere, the trend is just not there at the moment. It's got to break this downtrend. That's how I use trend lines, just kind of visualize a change in structure. Palantir, listen, you cannot ignore the fact that this looks like a reverse cup and handle. And you might be gung-ho and bullish about Palantir long-term. That's perfectly fine. But you also cannot dismiss the fact that this could have some potential downside to it. So if this breaks this 120 area, honestly, I'd be looking to 96, maybe even 64. Somewhere around there is a potential. How long it takes to get there, I have no idea. But here are some levels for you. Palantir could be a decent short this week. I'm not looking along this. Maybe you want to risk against 120, keep the risk tight, but if you're wrong, get out of the way. Let's move on to CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike looks pretty strong, right? This was on the list. Why do I like it? Number one, look at the strong uptrend, right? It was creating all-time highs. It's 13% away from this all-time high over a short term of from high to low of 6 days. It had a 21% pullback. Now it's had a nice push off of that. What you could do trade-wise, put an anchor VWAP from that low, look on the 30-minute time frame, make sure we are above the 3-day pivot, which we are. I'd look for a pullback actually to make this even better. What we could do, let me delete that anchor VWAP real quick. What I like to do more so is on the 30-minute, look for that pivot anchor VWAP from there. Pullbacks to the 668 I think are viable. It'd be nice to get a quick pullback in the morning. Set a 30-minute low, risk against that low in this area, and then we get some buying. The only thing that I do not like is we have this pivot on gap from 721.74 to 703.22 that could potentially act as resistance. You can see it worked in here a little bit, but it ultimately rejected. The better trade would be above 721.74 and risking that 703, but the stop is kind of wide there, so it can be challenging. If you get an entry somewhere within here, matter of fact, I'm just going to set an alert or even deeper to risk maybe Thursday's low or an undercut of Thursday's low. We'll see. But with the news that the IREN, we have a deal, we'll see how the market actually reacts here. Now looks pretty interesting, has had a pullback from high to the lows over the course of 9 days of 29%. So pretty oversold in the short term. It got rejected at the downtrending 200 EMA, but you can see it's a nice consolidation. It's at an area of potential support. It's obviously not working perfectly, but we do have a potential 80-20 reversal trade. Your entry should have been on 101.33, the low of this day. The stop goes below this low. This looks like it could be a bounce trade moving into next week. So now looks pretty interesting as well. Moving on, Adobe getting smacked. I mean, if you're trying to catch a falling knife for a bounce trade, maybe this isn't my type. I would let it rest if I were. I'm not touching it. Snow looks like it might be heading to the 21. It might need a little bit more rest. Ideally, though, on pullbacks, we can get this thing in play. We'll see how it actually plays out. DDOG, same thing. I would like for this to rest and chop a little bit, but this is a name to be in when the momentum starts to roll again. MongoDB also at an interesting area of support. If we get a pullback into this area here, maybe risking June 9th's low, that might be a pretty good risk reward. What's that give you? 337-ish to 323. It's an okay stop. What's the percentage on that? 3%, man, close to 4. That's a little more than I like, but this name does move, so it can give you a decent risk reward. It's at the 21. It's below the 8. It might need to digest a little bit. Let's move forward. CRM, Salesforce. I am in this. I actually made a mistake and didn't set my stop loss when I entered. I should have been out on the low of 163.30 at the undercut. But all it did was undercut this level here and then reclaim it. So technically I am in still. I did set my stop loss. So it'd be nice if we got a gap up. I do think we have a decent potential for this to be a support play. Otherwise, this could end up being from failed comes fast moves, and we'll see if this actually holds. Kind of reminds me of Meta. Let it load here real quick. Consolidation breaks out, and then we'll see if it fails. It's not the exact same, but you get the idea, right? All right, let's move on. So I am in long already from last week on CRM. I'll be managing the risk there now that I have my stop loss in. Rookie mistake on my end. IBM, nothing crazy here. Netflix, I still think this is the potential short. My target is filling this gap, 78.07, maybe we get down to 76.67 or potentially even 75. There's just like no interest here at all. People are selling this to get into AI stocks, in my opinion. That's how I see it. NVIDIA, as a main driver that this thing is, it's a snoozer. It's a snoozer for the stock. There's really nothing to see here. There's better places to be. Broadcom, poor earnings, poor guidance on AI. Basically, that's why it's part of the reason why I got hit. I still think it needs to consolidate a little bit. I would watch these lows. It's holding that 370.33 low. Pretty interesting. Maybe 362.81 would be an area to risk against. I wouldn't even mind the 200 EMA tag and bounce. We'll see if it actually gets there. Moving on, AMD. So this is where the strength is of the market. Let me show you this real quick. Stocks, boom, bada bing. These guys are moving the market. Semiconductors continue to move. Everyone continues to say, oh, they're stretched. They're saying back here, this is the top, right? Look how much more we've moved from this quote unquote top to this quote unquote top, another 15%. Listen, the trend is your friend until it dies in the end or until it begins to bend, whatever you want to say. These are still in play. These are still in play until they stop working. It might be hard. You might tell yourself, hey, it's super hard to get in. I tell myself that all the time, but ultimately what it really breaks down to is where's momentum, where's volatility, as we are traders, and volatility is a trader's best friend. So we have to be here. We're forced to be here. If you want to make money, this is where you got to be. So this is where I'm going to be focusing. AMD, let's look at a shorter time frame. Anchor VWAP from this most recent low. I'll be looking for pullbacks into this blue box here. I would love a pullback into this this pivot on gap here, 474.24, something in here that I can potentially risk against. Maybe this low here, maybe even depending on how deep we get. I wouldn't mind risking against this 437.20. Any pullback within this area, I think, is viable. We're above the anchor VWAP from the all-time highs here. We're only 6.5% away. With how this thing has been moving, that's nothing. It's above the 8, it's above the 20. Everything is trending up. AMD has been strong, and I think this is a place to be moving on to next week. KSM looks interesting. It's just not. It's not as strong as AMD. So, like, you can be here, but I think there are better places to be. Micron, same thing, super strong. ADMA above the 8, above the 21, above the anchor VWAP from the all-time high. Holding all of that above the 3-day pivot, tag the 21, it's holding it. Any pullbacks within this range, I think, is pretty decently viable. We'll see even if we get a pullback into this. Really, I don't know how the market's going to react to the deal. Everyone's saying, hey, we should react nicely. What if this whole time it's been a buy the rumor and then we're now sell the news, right? This has been going on for a while now. We'll see if it actually sticks. MRVL, this is a pretty solid name. I think this is a place to be as well this week. I do like the digestion and the consolidation here. You got to kind of break the downtrend line first. Looking at the 30-minute, it's holding the 8. It's above the 21. This is an area to be. I have an anchor VWAP from this prior low. As long as it holds that and doesn't spend time below it, the shorts, if you're shorting up here, or at least shorted down here, actually, you're still in pressure. The buyers are still in control. You got an anchor VWAP pinch potentially setting up here. So anchor VWAP from the all-time high to this prior low. We can wait until it breaks. Look where it's being rejected at, right? And right there at the anchor VWAP from the prior high. And at this downtrend line area, if you care about that stuff, 287 basically. So if it breaks and holds 287 or gaps up above, I think that's a decent area you can risk against. INTC looks pretty decent, but really in the grand scheme of things, it's just kind of in a chop zone. Like, maybe you can argue that this could be a bull flag, but I don't know. To me, I see more instead of that. I see more of a chop zone. I'm not a super fan of trading within ranges, right? See how biased, subjective technical analysis can be. TXN looks pretty solid. This is on my watch list. Downtrend line break above the 8, above the 21, tagged at 50 EMA. It's holding it. I have the anchor VWAP from that low, and it's holding that too. So any dips into this area here, I'm going to set my alerts right now. You can watch me do it. I will be watching for entries for something to risk against. So TXN looks pretty solid as well. Let's move forward. ARM, another super strong name that is a place to be in, right? Anchor VWAP from this low. You see how I trade. This is my part of my process. 3-day pivot above it. The cumulative score is positive. We look for pullbacks within the 3-day pivot, something to risk against within this area. Even a pivot on gap right there, that'd be pretty solid to risk against to see if that holds. Ideally, it clears this 389.79, 382.48 area. There's a pivot on gap there, so you can see that it found resistance there on Friday. We'll see if it clears, but either way, ARM is also a place to be. Qualcomm holding the 50, kind of just chopping around. I don't know. You can get a little push, maybe look for a pullback. I don't think it's anything significant. DELL, another strong name, holding the 8, holding the anchor VWAP from this gap up. It is the average participant from the earnings is underwater though. So I would wait for it honestly to get above 417-ish and hold and see where that goes. HPE, similar thing. I mean, there's a lot of damage here. Well, I would just I'd let that chop, see if it can base, and then maybe it'll go. Western Digital, another strong name, setting a higher low here. We'll see if it moves to create a higher high. Looks like it most likely will. If we go on the 30-minute time frame, find the most recent low from that 30-minute time frame, set an anchor VWAP on there. It's above the anchor VWAP from the all-time highs there. It's only 6.6% away. Looks pretty solid. Any pullbacks within here actually might be viable. So that looks decent as well. Moving on. Memory, Seagate Technology. This is super strong name, super expensive, 931.04. I don't know how many shares you are getting out of this. That's a different conversation, but you can see I had an alert here, never triggered. I'm just going to move that up here. Any pullback within that, maybe you can risk against it. Again, it's above the anchor VWAP from all-time highs. It's only 3.5% away from all-time highs. This is a strong name. It continues to be a strong name. No matter what you want to say, how extended these are, how strong they have moved, they're moving. SanDisk, another name to be involved in. Like, this is pretty gambly at this point with how strong it's been. But it continues to move, right? It continues to move. Now, there are arguments that memory stocks are going to get hit at some point in time because of recursive self-improvement with AI. They're going to be more efficient. They're going to get more work done with less code and less memory required. We're not there yet, but just know that that thought is out there. So just be mindful as you pack into these memories. If that is if it's not on your mind, it should be. We're going to move through these. There's nothing interesting here. Coherent, holding where it needs to be, but look, it's just chopping around in a mess. Move on. GLW finding support where it has before, undercut this low, and now it reclaimed it, probably just chopping in a range, needs some time. Lumentum, I don't know. This kind of looks like it could be potentially a top for me. Maybe it consolidates and just, gets another some resting period for another leg higher. We shall actually see. ENTG, this is one that I really like this week. Energy, basically. I think the same in chemicals as well. Things are starting. We got a nice pop, right? We got a nice pop on Thursday of 12.5%. Nice follow through of nearly 4% on Friday. I am looking for pullbacks into somewhere within. I hope I didn't just move my watch list around. We can set an anchor VWAP from this most recent low here. Somewhere within this area, 3-day pivot, maybe a little retest. There's a lot going on here. This prior level here that I had, we don't have a pivot on gap that we can rely on, but somewhere in here, I'd be interested in entering. We shall see, but I do think overall, ENTG, look at that, pretty important level here. It's holding it, right? It's holding it. And look where it found here. Let me mark these levels. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. There. And all-time highs. It's a little sloppy, but you get my point. Move that down a tad. That'll bother me. There you go. Right. This looks like a nice, very nice base that it could double bottom, whatever you want to call it. It's not double bottom yet in my book. It's got to break those highs and then we roll. But look at that. Huge. What's it been doing? Let's go all the way. It started here in September 2020. You can say, what are we now? Almost 6 years, right? Call it 5. Let's say this hit this high back in November 21, 4.5 years of doing nothing. Big base here, big base. Now it's flagging, nice little cup, the handle's a little bit bigger than this little short-term base here. Either way, ENTG looks good. It looks like it's going to potentially stay moving if it can get moving firstly. CRWV, again, being brought into the NASDAQ. I think I have a date for you. Give me 1 second. Being brought into the NASDAQ on June 22nd. That's when it's effective, June 22nd. So we're going to have some inflows from ETFs into that, people buying. So it's at a prior support area, undercut. Now we're getting a little bounce. Really big picture though, like this is more of a support play. It's chopping. It's a very volatile name. So if you can't stomach, if you don't manage your risk, don't touch this thing. But it's volatile and it's, pretty large base. It continues to find supply in this 135 to 138 area, but it's at prior level support. This, I think, is becoming tradable, especially as a support play. You might be able to risk that Friday low or Thursday low it was. NBIS and EBS, look at this. Strong name, 16% away from all-time highs. This is another mover, okay? So NeoClouds memory from within 5 days, 28% pullback. Manage your risk with these names, right? Manage your risk with these names. Don't be a, I don't know, don't not manage your risk. I'll just leave it at that. This looks like it's starting to curl up, right? It's starting to change short-term trend, anchor VWAP for the low. I have my alert set in this 218.90 area. I'll even bring it up to 224. We'll see what actually happens, but I think that's a name to be paying attention to this week specifically. IREN, also similar. Let's look at big picture here. It's not really doing much, right? It's still failing to hold this 60, let's just call it $63 level. However, it is setting higher highs and higher lows. As long as this low holds, it's a higher low versus here, and it's a higher high versus here. So we'll see if we get a nice move to create a higher high. This thing can move too. It's moved 10% one day, then followed through with 5.5% the next day. So I'm looking for an entry at some point in time, an opening range to risk against, or an undercut and reclaim of some sort of low. CORZ, again, and this one I think is also important to pay attention to this week. It's holding where it needs to hold on retest, and it's getting bought up. So this has good potential for this upcoming week. It looks interesting. APLD, this had some deals coming out with CRWV, and that was announced on the 8th. You can see it got hit on the 8th. I'm sorry, it gapped up. So news out on the 8th, gapped up on the 9th, and did nothing but sold off. But look where it's holding. It's got a nice base. It's holding this call it $40 level, which is pretty important. So as long as it holds that and continues to consolidate, this looks like it might actually start turning up. It's above the 8, it's above the 21. It's holding the 50. So it's an area of interest. Now, energy, this will be specifically oil stock, right? This will be interesting to see where we open up at tomorrow, especially if we're getting supply now through the Strait of Hormuz. We're looking for oil to short, right? Specifically on this news as a catalyst. So what that brings into question, does oil hold this level here of let's call it 140? Let's just say 140. It's kind of a range, right? 145, 140-ish. That's 141.86 technically. Does it hold it? Do we get a 200 EMA tag? Does it undercut and rally? Is this a reverse head and shoulders? And do these oil names, do they now become a short? That's basically through all of them. You can see that all been chopping and really doing nothing over, I don't know, since mid-April. So do they now become a play, and which way do they become in play in? To the downside or to the upside? Cheniere Energy eventually it's going to set a higher low here. I think this has potential, even though, look at this, it consolidated here, made the fake move to the 21 and failed. Now, this is different at the moment. It actually got up to the 50. The 50 is starting to flatten. It actually closed above the 21 a couple of times. It's holding the anchor VWAP from this prior low. So this has potential to start turning around here. We'll see what happens with the news. I think this is an interesting name, but not a top name necessarily to be involved in this week. Obviously, I could be wrong, but I think the other names are more important. So same thing with Halliburton, VLO, same thing. Like, are these names, do they become shorts, MPC? Do they become shorts, or are they going to do nothing? How are they going to react? I'd be shocked if we didn't get some sort of reaction. KMI looks pretty interesting at this prior support area here. Nice bullish engulfing. It didn't close above it, but it took out the lows and the highs of Thursday selling on higher volume if you care about that stuff. This looks like it might start turning around, but really in the grand scheme of things, it's more of a support play. It's not doing much except chopping within range. GEV looks interesting. Vernova holding where it needs to hold, undercut it, and then reclaimed it. Still at a downtrend line, still underneath the 50. It's above the 8, it's below the 21. So It's still guilty until proven innocent, but I think there's some constructive action going in GEV, going into VRT. Caterpillar is not really doing anything. It's chopping. BE, there's your support play there. This is just a super sloppy name to trade. I don't know how people do it, honestly. CCJ Chemical. We'll see if it reclaims this prior support. Let's call it 101. We'll see if it reclaims that. It's spending a few days underneath the 200 EMA and below all of this potential supply. So we'll see how much pressure these quote unquote trapped longs. Nobody's actually trapped. They're going to sell if they want to sell, right? But we'll see how much supply actually comes out of with this potential supply overhead there. We'll actually see. SMR, another power at a prior support area, might be an interesting buy. It looks like it's consolidation, and it might actually start to get a bid in base here. Breaks lower, just get out of the way. Same thing with Oklo. Nothing super crazy. NXE Energy, it's at a potential area of support, so it looks somewhat interesting. But it's just getting hit. It's below the EMAs, all that stuff. FSLR, I do like FSLR. If you like solar, again, energy, I think that's a place to be in. You can see from high to low over the course of 5 days, down 22.5%. We got a nice bounce where we were anticipating, right? We'll see if it actually holds. We can go on the shorter time frame here. Set an anchored VWAP. I'm going to delete that there real quick. We're going to set an anchor VWAP from the most recent low here, and we'll see if it actually, let's see, which one is it? 248.75 versus 248.68. We'll see if it begins to hold that. I keep an eye out for it. This still has some proving to do. We'll see if this bounce is real, if it will hold some juice. But it's an interesting name, in my opinion. NXT, we'll see if it can reclaim this. It's a little bit steeper of a pullback than we'd like to see. FLNC a little sloppy, MP a little sloppy. ALB, Albemarle, got some love on Thursday and Friday. So I think undercut, and now it's back into the prior range. From failed moves comes fast moves. Where is this range? This one's a little hard to eye, in my opinion. Maybe we get back to 195. It's being rejected at the 50 EMA right now, so just be mindful of that. FCX Copper. Copper is getting some love here. It's getting tight. I'd be watching for a breakout, especially this week of copper. Copper will be on my focus list for futures. Silver, a silver name, silver miners, gold, you can see that they're all close to support or reclaiming an undercut and rally potential, right? An undercut and reclaim looks are kind of popping up within the metal space. So we'll see if we get some, or they're holding support. So we'll see if we get some love from metals this week. That is a potential with the news. Overall, though, they're getting crushed, right? So they're mostly, I'd be looking for more so, look, another support play, right? More so for a bounce and then some more consolidation, potential supply coming back in. We'll actually see. Going into the space realm, SpaceX, I'm just going to start tracking that. Rocket Lab got hit. We shouldn't be shocked. LUNR got hit. ASTS got hit. You know, I was anticipating this. Planet Labs got hit. IRDM got hit because they're most likely selling that stuff to get into SpaceX. Just like we were talking about a couple weeks ago where we had that large selling off the jobs print, which is maybe was an excuse to sell to raise funds for SPCX, right? LMT looks solid. I've been saying for the past couple weeks with not the most confidence, but defense names look like they're consolidating, catching a bid. I think this right here, Thursday, shows that's a potential. We'll see if it actually holds. It's still being rejected at the 50, but it's holding a bid. It looks pretty solid. Ideally, it breaks that downtrend line. NOC doesn't look as good. GE Aerospace, this looks pretty solid. ISO flag, it's breaking higher. This looks like it's going to 348. So I like that. RTX also looks pretty strong. It's got it's got potential supply at this prior support area, at this 185, 186 area. So ideally that breaks and holds. Then maybe we can actually get a reverse trend. Joby looks like not good. Archer has a bear flag I have marked out here. Heck, if this continues to go down, maybe it gets to 403 and maybe even 284 if it continues to get hit. We'll actually see ONDS fail to break this range here. Maybe it's a support play, but ideally this does not end up like Meta, where it rips out of the consolidation, tremendously fails, and then continues on lower. Just manage your risk with these types of names. Hood looks good. I took a trade on it last week. I got stopped out before it ripped on me. So whatever is what it is. Looks like it's trying to turn around. Also important that Hood seems to be decoupling from good old Bitcoin. It is not acting the same. It did not get hit as hard as Bitcoin did, and it did not. You see, up over the past few days, Bitcoin actually, well, this Saturday and Sunday, right? So it's actually been relatively strong compared to Bitcoin. It's not acting the same as Bitcoin, so it might be decoupling from it. Usually it moved with it, right? Coin, MSTR, we're getting bounces from oversold positions, UPS, and then FedEx. FedEx looks pretty good. UPS is just chopping in range. FedEx looks nice. It's 1.3% from all-time highs. It's a slow mover. It's definitely not your AI stocks, but if you like slow movers, that might be a decent look for you. And then CME is getting a nice bounce at where prior support undercut. Now we get like a little retest here on Tuesday. It failed to even test those lows, and now we're getting a rip up. So we shall see where this actually holds. I have an anchor VWAP from this low, and I think that might be a good area to risk against. Specifically, I'll just leave it on that, actually, on that bar. I wouldn't mind, a little pullback within somewhere around here. All right, looking at the SPY. We'll end with this. Typically start with this, but I guess I'm a little disorganized. SPY, SPX, cash, holding where it needs to hold. Hitting anchor VWAP right now. We'll actually see, again, where there's RSP overall, money flowing out of the heavyweights into the rest of the market. That's how basically I see it. Same thing, tech, overall tech, semis, Bitcoin doesn't look good. There's rates, more rates. SMH, this is where we're at, right? This is what's driving the market. It continues to drive the market. So until something changes, this is where you should be. SMH, semis, stocks, even the both triple leverage ETF, right? Focuses on semis this week. And then also the NeoClouds. All right, hopefully that's helpful. Have a good week. Manage your risk. We'll catch you later.